We all hear about AI changing the world, right?
Yeah.
But what about the dangers? The ones they aren't talking about?
Exactly. And that's what makes today so interesting. We're diving into Jay Poole's article.
AI's secret dangers.
That's the one, what they're not telling you about the risks.
Catchy title.
Mm.
And Jay Poole really went all over the place for their research. I mean, you've got Stanford lectures in there.
Yeah, you see that. And then they bring in Rethink X, even Tony Seba, the futurist.
Wild mix, which is what makes this deep dive good for, well, everyone, pretty much.
Right. Doesn't matter if you're an AI fanatic just starting to learn or maybe a little freaked out by the whole thing, we're covering it all.
So let's start positive. We always hear AI is going to boost the economy,
Improve lives.
solve all our problems, right?
Yeah.
But Jay Poole says, hold on, there's a flip side.
A dark side, maybe.
These secret dangers lurking under the surface.
Like a hidden cost.
Exactly. And Jay Poole, they lay out three big ones. Privacy, for starters.
My bias.
Oh, and of course the one everyone's worried about, jobs disappearing. And these aren't just like theoretical problems either. This stuff affects all of us right now.
Think about it. Your medical records.
Or even simpler, like your Amazon shopping history.
Exactly. Without the right safeguards, AI can use that data in ways, well, you'd never expect.
Maybe.
And it could even be used against you. That's the scary part.
Okay, so that's privacy. But then there's the bias issue. I mean, we've already seen this happening, haven't we?
Oh, yeah. Systems like those hiring algorithms.
Right. They keep making things worse because they're trained on data that's already biased.
It's like AI doesn't start from scratch. It learns from us, from the information we give it. So if that info's messed up.
The AI is going to be messed up too.
Precisely.
And of course, we've got to talk about jobs. Some people say AI will create new jobs, which it probably will, but
others are saying, hey, whole sectors, entire industries could be automated out of existence.
and then what? Mass unemployment. It's a real worry.
It's not just factory workers and robots anymore either. Think about truck drivers.
Self-driving trucks, yeah.
Or even customer service. Those chatbot things are getting pretty good.
Jay Poole's point is we need to be thinking about this now. Like, which jobs are most at risk?
And how do we prepare people for that shift?
So, okay, a lot of scary stuff. How do we deal with all these risks?
Well, Jay Poole points to this ethical framework from Stanford. It's kind of like the starting point.
For doing AI the right way.
Exactly. It's not just about building the tech. It's about building AI that's good for humanity.
So what does that look like, practically speaking?
Well, there are three main principles. Human-centric design, that's the first one.
Okay, and what does that mean?
AI should be empowering people, not replacing them. Like, imagine a doctor, right? They're using AI to look at, like, medical images, helps them diagnose better, but the doctor's still the one making the call.
So AI is the tool. The doctor's in charge.
You got it. And this also means designing AI so that anyone can use it, even if they aren't super tech savvy.
Makes sense. And that leads into the second principle, inclusivity.
Yeah, that's a big one for fixing that bias problem we talked about.
How so?
If the people creating AI, or the data it's learning from, well, if that's not diverse, then the AI won't be either.
So you end up with an AI that just reinforces the same old inequalities.
Sadly, yeah. Like, take an AI that's helping with loan applications, for example.
Great.
If it's trained on biased data, it might deny loans to people who are actually qualified just because of their race or where they live.
Wow. So you need diverse teams building these things, and you need to make sure the data itself is representative.
Absolutely. Otherwise, it's just going to be more of the same problems, but amplified.
Makes sense. And what about the third principle, sustainability? Where does that fit in?
So sustainability and AI, it's got two sides, right? First, there's the environmental impact.
Like the energy it takes to train these massive AI models.
Lots of energy. So we got to figure out how to do it more efficiently.
So AI can help the planet, but it can also hurt it if we're not careful.
Yeah, it's a balancing act. And then the other side of sustainability is about the long-term impact on society.
Like, does this AI actually align with our goals for a better future?
Exactly. Is it promoting social justice, protecting the environment, helping the economy in a way that benefits everyone?
Not just making a few companies rich.
Right. Those are the questions we need to be asking.
So these three principles, they sound like a pretty solid foundation for ethical AI.
They're a good start, for sure. But Jay Poole also brings in these guys, Rethink X and Tony Seba, and they've got some pretty serious warnings.
Oh, yeah? Like what?
They're saying AI is going to disrupt our world in ways we haven't even begun to imagine. And these guys, they're known for their bold predictions.
So it's not just the ethical stuff. There's this whole other layer of like real-world consequences that we need to be prepared for.
Big time. And they don't sugarcoat it either.
Okay, so what areas do they focus on?
They break it down into 3 main challenges that AI is likely to bring up. Economic, of course.
For jobs, yeah, we talked about that.
But they go deeper. Like, which specific industries are going to be hit hardest?
And what happens if we don't prepare for that?
Could be mass unemployment. It's not a pretty picture.
Okay, so that's the economic side. What about socially? How does AI affect the way we live and interact with each other?
Well, they talk about a world where AI is everywhere. In our homes, at work, on the streets.
Always watching.
Potentially. And that raises all sorts of questions about privacy, surveillance, and whether AI is going to make inequality even worse.
But it's not just about jobs. It's about the fabric of society being reshaped by AI.
Exactly. And finally, they talk about regulation.
Yeah, we need some rules for this stuff.
Big time. And Jay Poole, building on what Rethink X and SIVA are saying, they argue that the laws we have now just aren't equipped to deal with AI. It's too complex, too fast-moving.
So we need new laws, new policies to keep up with AI and make sure it doesn't run wild.
Right. We need rules that protect people's rights, ensure fairness, and prevent those unintended consequences from spiraling out of control.
So it's like we've got this incredible technology, but we're still figuring out how to handle it.
It's a huge challenge, for sure. But it's also an incredible opportunity. If we get this right, AI could help us solve some of the biggest problems facing humanity.
But if we get it wrong?
Well, that's what Jay Poole wants us to think about. What does it mean to use AI for good? And how do we make sure that happens?
So we've got this potential, but also these risks. Where do we go from here? What does Jay Poole suggest we actually do?
That's what we'll dig into after a quick break. Jay Poole doesn't just leave us with a bunch of warnings. They actually lay out a path forward, a call to action for all of us, individuals, organizations, governments.
A plan for making sure AI benefits humanity.
That's the goal, and it starts with each of us taking responsibility. It's about taking control, right? Not just letting AI happen to us. Jay Poole, they say there are 4 key things we need to focus on.
Okay, let's break those down. Where do we start?
Ethical guidelines, that's got to be the foundation. And I'm not talking about some vague ideas, but real, solid principles. Standards for how AI is designed, trained, used, the whole 9 yards.
So like setting the rules of the game.
Uh,
But who gets to decide what those rules are?
That's the thing. Jay Poole says it can't just be the tech companies calling all the shots. It's got to be a team effort.
Developers, obviously.
Ethicists, yeah. Policymakers, too. But here's the big one. The public needs to be involved.
Makes sense. It's going to affect all of us, so we should have a say.
Exactly. It's the only way to make sure these guidelines actually reflect what society wants, you know.
Right, not just what's profitable or whatever.
And then they can't just be suggestions either. There's got to be some way to enforce them.
Regulations.
Could be. Or maybe industry standards, some kind of combination. The point is that there have to be consequences if someone breaks the rules.
Okay, so we've got the ethical framework in place. What's next?
Impact assessments. Before any AI system is released into the wild, we need to figure out what it might do.
It's like a risk assessment, but specifically for AI.
More than that, it's about looking at the social impact, economic consequences, the whole picture.
Okay, give me an example. What kind of questions would an impact assessment look at?
Who are the stakeholders? What are the potential benefits, but also the harms? Could this thing be misused? And if so, how?
And what about the long-term consequences?
Exactly. The stuff we might not even be thinking about yet.
It sounds like a lot of work. Are companies actually doing this?
Well, to be honest, not as much as they should be. It's still a pretty new idea, but Jay Poole's pushing for it to become standard practice.
Makes sense. Catch the problems before they blow up, right?
Exactly. Prevention is better than cure, especially with something as powerful as AI.
So, ethical guidelines, impact assessments. What's the third thing Jay Poole talks about?
Transparency. We got to be able to see what's going on under the hood. The more we understand how AI works, the less we'll fear it.
Yeah, but some of these systems are so complicated. How do you make a black box algorithm transparent?
Jay Poole has a few ideas. Clear documentation, for starters. Explain what the system does, what data it uses, how it makes decisions. Like, in plain English.
So people can actually understand it.
Right. And then there's this thing called explainable AI.
What's that?
So imagine the AI can actually explain why it did something. Like, instead of just recommending a product, it tells you, hey, based on your past purchases, I think you'll like this.
So you know the reasoning behind it.
Yeah, it helps build trust. And finally, Jay Poole says we need regular reports on how these systems are performing.
Like a checkup.
Exactly. Did it run into any ethical issues? Were there any biases? How were they fixed? That kind of stuff.
So ongoing accountability, not just a one-time thing. Okay, what's the fourth element of Jay Poole's plan?
Stakeholder engagement. We can't just tell people about AI, we got to involve them.
Give them a seat at the table.
Exactly. Jay Poole talks about things like public consultations, community forums, even citizen juries, where regular people get to weigh in on AI policy.
So it's not just experts and tech companies making all the decisions.
Right. It's a collaborative effort. And that's how we avoid ending up with AI that only serves a few people's interests.
I see. So we're not just passengers on this AI train. We can actually help steer it.
That's the idea. It's about shaping the future of AI together, not just letting it happen to us.
That's a pretty ambitious vision.
It is, but Jay Poole's convinced it's possible. They say it starts with education, awareness, and a willingness to get involved.
And not just accepting whatever the tech companies tell us.
Right. It's about being informed, asking critical questions, and demanding more from the people who are building this technology.
So we have a responsibility as citizens to engage with this stuff.
Absolutely. And not just to avoid the bad stuff, but to make sure AI actually lives up to its potential.
That potential to do good.
Exactly. And that's what Jay Poole leaves us with. It's a challenge for sure, but it's also an exciting opportunity to build a better future with AI.
So much to think about. But okay, realistically, what can we do, like as individuals, to make sure AI is used the right way?
Jay Poole says education's got to be step one. Just understanding what AI, even IS, how it works, the impact it could have on us.
Become informed citizens of the AI age.
Exactly. But it can't just be like passively reading stuff. We got to be part of the conversation, asking those tough questions, pushing for policies that make sure AI development is ethical.
Using our voices, basically.
Yeah.
But where do we even go to learn this stuff? And then, actually get involved in these discussions?
Well, first off, Jay Poole's got this YouTube channel, Tech Frontiers. They really get into the nitty-gritty over there.
So our deep dive can continue over on Tech Frontiers. Good to know. But before we wrap up, there's this one point from Jay Poole that really, really stuck with me. If AI is going to be this powerful, who gets to decide how it's used?
Right. Governments, companies,
Right.
Or us,
Yeah.
we the people.
It's a huge question, right? Who's shaping the future with AI? Whose interests are they looking out for?
Tough stuff. Jay Poole doesn't give us easy answers, but they want us to be asking these questions, to demand more transparency, more accountability from the folks in charge.
Because AI is not science fiction anymore.
Hey.
It's here.
Yeah.
It's already changing things. And what we do in now is going to determine what kind of future we end up with.
No pressure, right. But we can't just sit back and watch. This is a call to action. Each of us has a part to play in making sure AI is used ethically, responsibly, for the good of everybody.
Well said. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Jay Poole's AI's secret dangers. We hope it gave you plenty to think about.
And plenty to do.